She ignored the prophecy and walked straight into a nightmare she never saw coming. This is how it all started. In the bustling city of Adox, there lived a pastor whose name was known in every corner of the city. His name was Pastor Maxwell. To many people, he was not just a pastor. He was a man sent directly by God. Every Sunday, the church overflowed with people from different towns and villages. Some came for healing. Some came for deliverance. Others came because they believed Pastor Maxwell could see hidden things no ordinary human could ever know, and strangely, his prophecies never failed. One afternoon during a healing service, a man who had not walked properly for years was brought before the altar. The entire church watched silently as Pastor Maxwell placed his hand gently on his head. "Rise up in the name of Jesus," he shouted. Suddenly the man stood up from his wheelchair. The church exploded with screams and cries of joy. "Power! Fire! God is here!" People rushed forward, trying to touch the pastor's clothes as tears rolled down their faces. From that day onward, Pastor Maxwell was respected even more. Even stubborn people in the city began to fear him. Among those people was Auntie Agnes, the most notorious gossip in the entire community. No secret was safe once it reached her ears. Yet, after listening to Pastor Maxwell's preaching for only 3 weeks, she completely changed. She stopped insulting people, stopped spreading rumors, and became one of the most dedicated women in the church. But the biggest surprise of all was Daniel. Daniel was once known as the most feared criminal in the area. Just 2 months earlier, he had been released from prison after serving time for armed robbery and gang violence. But somehow, Pastor Maxwell managed to convince him to surrender his life to Christ. And within a few months, Daniel transformed completely. He stopped drinking. He stopped fighting. He even became an usher in the church. The church members were amazed. Soon, people started bringing all their problems to Pastor Maxwell. Some came because they were sick. Some came because of spiritual attacks. Others came because they wanted prophecies concerning their future. And each time Pastor Maxwell spoke, something always happened. One evening, during a powerful prayer service, the atmosphere inside the church suddenly changed. The worship music became slow and emotional as Pastor Maxwell closed his eyes tightly. Then he pointed directly at Auntie Agnes. "You there? Rise up." Pastor Maxwell slowly walked toward her. "Auntie Agnes," he said in a deep voice, "I see danger surrounding your daughter." The entire church became silent. "Your daughter Kate, the young woman who moves around with different men at night." Murmurs began to spread across the congregation. Everybody knew Kate. She was beautiful, flashy, stubborn, and widely known for prostitution. Pastor Maxwell continued, "I see in the realm of the spirit that a man has marked her for rituals. If she does not stop this lifestyle, death is very close to her." That same night, immediately after service ended, Auntie Agnes hurried home with panic in her chest. She found Kate sitting in front of a mirror, applying makeup and preparing to go out. "Kate!" Auntie Agnes shouted breathlessly. Kate rolled her eyes. "Now what again, Mama?" Auntie Agnes grabbed her hand tightly. "Pastor Maxwell saw something terrible about you during church service. He said a man wants to use you for rituals." Kate froze briefly, but then burst into laughter. "What nonsense is this?" "Kate, I'm serious," her mother cried, but Kate angrily stood up and snatched her hand away. "Tell that fake pastor of yours to stay away from my business," flicked her hair backwards angrily. "He should stop using fake prophecies to control people." Auntie Agnes stood speechless. Kate grabbed her handbag and stormed toward the door. As she walked out into the dark night, she turned back with irritation burning in her eyes. "And tell him his prophecy is cold water." The door slammed shut loudly behind her. Auntie Agnes slowly sank into a chair, fear written all over her face. Little did Kate know that danger had already started following her. 2 days passed after Pastor Maxwell's frightening prophecy about Kate, and the entire town could not stop talking about it. Some believed the pastor was truly hearing from God. Others believed he was simply trying to scare people. But one person who refused to believe any of it was Kate. The young woman continued her nightlife as if nothing had happened. Every evening, she dressed in flashy clothes, sprayed expensive perfume on her body, and left the house without listening to her mother's warnings. Meanwhile, inside the church, another prophecy was about to shock the congregation. The atmosphere inside the church was intense as worshipers prayed loudly with sweat dripping down their faces. Pastor Maxwell stood at the altar with his eyes closed tightly. Suddenly he pointed toward Daniel. "Young man, come out." Daniel quickly rushed forward. Pastor Maxwell placed his hand on Daniel's head and began to pray aggressively. Then, he stopped suddenly. "I see unexpected favor coming your way," he declared. The church became silent immediately. A stranger is about to place a huge blessing into your hands. And when it happens, remember that God has remembered you. Daniel's eyes widened with excitement. Tears filled his eyes instantly. "Thank you, Jesus," he shouted, falling to his knees. The church erupted into celebration. Daniel danced around the church excitedly throughout the entire service. For the first time since leaving prison, he finally felt his life was changing for good. 2 days later, Daniel was walking home alone after evening evangelism when a black car suddenly stopped beside him. The tinted window rolled down slowly. A strange man, wearing dark glasses, stared at him. "Are you Daniel?" the man asked. Daniel nodded nervously. Without another word, the stranger handed him a heavy black bag. "Someone asked me to give this to you." Confused, Daniel opened the bag slightly and froze. Bundles of money filled the bag completely. His legs nearly gave way. "Jesus!" he shouted. Before he could ask the man anything, the car zoomed off into the distance. The next Sunday, Daniel shared the testimony in church. The congregation screamed with excitement as he lifted the bag before everyone. "God has changed my story," he shouted emotionally. People cried tears of joy. But while celebration filled the church, danger was quietly closing in on Kate. Late one evening, Kate entered a luxurious car belonging to one of her wealthy customers. The man looked calm and friendly at first. But as the journey continued, Kate noticed something strange. The road they were using became darker and emptier. No houses, no people, no lights. Fear slowly crept into her chest. "Where are we going?" she asked nervously. The man smiled coldly without answering. Kate's heartbeat quickened. Suddenly, the man locked the car doors. Kate began panicking. "Open the door," she shouted, but the man only laughed darkly. "You should have listened to the prophecy," he whispered. Kate screamed loudly as the man grabbed her arm, violently. In desperation, she bit his hand hard. The man shouted in pain, losing control briefly. Kate quickly pushed the door open and jumped out of the moving car. She hit the ground hard and rolled across the dusty roadside, bruised, bleeding, terrified. Without looking back, she ran barefoot through the darkness. Minutes later, Auntie Agnes heard frantic banging on her door. She rushed outside and froze in horror. Kate stood there trembling violently. Her clothes were torn. Her face was covered in sweat. Bruises covered her arms. "Kate!" Auntie Agnes screamed. Kate collapsed into her mother's arms, crying uncontrollably. "Mommy!" she sobbed painfully. "What Pastor Maxwell said is true." Auntie Agnes held her tightly. "What happened to you?" Kate shook with fear. "A man almost used me for rituals tonight," she cried. "I barely escaped alive." Auntie Agnes burst into tears immediately. "I warned you," she shouted emotionally, "but you never listen." Kate continued crying helplessly. For the first time in her life, she was really scared. The next morning, Auntie Agnes took Kate straight to church. The entire congregation watched in shock as Kate walked slowly to the altar with tears streaming down her face. Pastor Maxwell stood quietly as she fell to her knees. "Please, forgive me," she cried. "I want to give my life to Christ." The church erupted into loud prayers and celebration. But hidden behind Pastor Maxwell's calm smile was a secret nobody in the church could imagine. In the following weeks after Kate's shocking testimony, Pastor Maxwell's fame spread beyond the towns of Adox. People journeyed from distant places just to attend his services. Inside the church, testimonies came pouring in every week. "Since the pastor prayed for me, my business keeps on flourishing. My sickness disappeared. My son finally got a job." The more testimonies increased, the more Pastor Maxwell appeared powerful in the eyes of the people. One quiet afternoon, a young woman named Lucy hurried into the church compound with worry written all over her face. Lucy was known in the church as a calm and respectful young lady who rarely caused trouble. That day, however, her hands trembled slightly as she approached Pastor Maxwell's office. "Good afternoon, Pastor." Pastor Maxwell smiled warmly. "Lucy, my daughter, what brings you here?" Lucy sat down slowly. "Pastor, it's about my elder brother Francis." The smile on Pastor Maxwell's face faded immediately. "Tell me everything." Lucy sighed deeply. "My brother owns a large business in another city, but recently things have become terrible. He says he feels like someone is after him. He can't sleep anymore. He believes something bad is coming." "Pastor," Maxwell closed his eyes slowly. The room suddenly became silent. Lucy watched nervously as the pastor's breathing changed. Then suddenly, Pastor Maxwell opened his eyes sharply. Lucy exclaimed, "What is it, Pastor?" Pastor Maxwell stood up slowly from his chair. "I see danger. I see your brother lying on the ground." His voice became deeper. "There is blood everywhere." Pastor Maxwell pointed dramatically into the air. "I see a gun, a man, an unknown marksman shooting your brother." The room became completely silent. Lucy's eyes filled with tears immediately. "No, no, Pastor." Pastor Maxwell grabbed her shoulder firmly. "Listen carefully to me. Your brother must come here immediately. I need to pray for him before it is too late." Lucy nodded quickly. "I'll call him right away." That same evening, Lucy contacted Francis and explained everything. At first, Francis laughed. "You know, I don't believe these things too much." But after hearing the fear in his sister's voice, he finally agreed to come. 2 days later, a luxurious SUV drove into the community. Francis stepped out wearing an expensive black suit and dark sunglasses. Unlike Lucy, Francis was not deeply religious. He believed more in hard work than prophecies. Still, he respected his sister enough to visit the pastor. As they walked into the church compound together, church members stared admiringly at Francis. "Ah, that must be Lucy's rich brother," some whispered. Lucy led him into Pastor Maxwell's office. The moment Pastor Maxwell saw Francis, his face became unusually serious. "Sit down," he said quietly. Francis sat calmly. "Pastor," Maxwell stood before him and began praying intensely. "In the mighty name of Jesus." The atmosphere inside the office became heavy. Lucy closed her eyes tightly while Francis watched quietly. Suddenly, Pastor Maxwell stopped praying. He placed his hand on Francis' shoulder. "My son, God will protect you." Lucy sighed in relief, but Pastor Maxwell's expression remained tense. "You must be very careful." Francis frowned slightly. "Careful of what?" Pastor Maxwell slowly walked toward the window. "There are evil eyes watching you." A cold silence filled the room. Francis forced a smile. "Well, thank you, Pastor." Though he tried acting calm, something about the pastor's words unsettled him deeply. A week later, it was time for Francis to return to his city. That morning, Lucy escorted him to the roadside where buses usually stopped. The sky was cloudy and unusually quiet. Francis adjusted his wristwatch and smiled at his sister. "Don't worry too much," he said softly. Lucy nodded weakly. "I just want you to stay safe." Francis pulled her into a brief hug. "I'll be fine." Across the street, unknown to them, a shadowy figure stood partially hidden behind a parked vehicle, watching, waiting. Francis picked up his travel bag and waved goodbye. "All right, Lucy. I'll call you when I arrive." Lucy smiled faintly and waved back. Then suddenly, boom, the sound of a gunshot exploded across the street. Everything froze. Francis' body jerked violently. Blood burst through the back of his shirt. His bag dropped from his hands as he collapsed slowly onto the ground. Lucy's eyes widened in horror. "Francis!" People nearby began screaming and running in panic. Lucy turned toward the opposite side of the road, desperately trying to see who fired the shot. Then she saw a figure standing in the distance, and what she saw made terror flood her entire body. Lucy screamed loudly. "What?" Francis was rushed to the hospital immediately after the shooting. The entire emergency ward became chaotic as nurses and doctors struggled desperately to save his life. Lucy sat outside the emergency room, trembling uncontrollably, her clothes stained with her brother's blood. Her mind replayed the gunshot over and over again. Boom. Every time she remembered the sound, her body shook with fear. Minutes later, the emergency room doors opened slowly. A doctor stepped out with a heavy expression on his face. Lucy immediately stood up. "Doctor, how is my brother?" The doctor lowered his eyes, sadly. "I'm sorry." Lucy froze. The bullet damaged vital organs. "We couldn't save him." For a moment, the entire world around Lucy became silent. No. Tears rolled slowly down her cheeks. No. She collapsed onto the hospital floor, crying uncontrollably. The news of Francis' death spread through the town quickly. Church members were shocked. Many people could not understand how Pastor Maxwell saw the attack beforehand, yet Francis still died. Some called it destiny. Others believed the enemy was simply too powerful. But one thing was certain. Fear began spreading through the entire church. 3 days later, Francis was buried. The funeral was filled with sorrow. Dark clouds covered the sky as mourners dressed in black surrounded the burial ground silently. Lucy sat near the coffin, unable to stop crying. Even Pastor Maxwell attended the funeral wearing a long black suit with dark glasses. He comforted Lucy softly. "Be strong, my daughter. God understands everything." Lucy nodded weakly. But deep inside, something felt wrong. That same evening, as Lucy sat alone in her living room, her thoughts drifted back to the moment of the shooting. The mysterious figure standing across the road, the body shape, the posture, the movement. The more she thought about it, the more one face kept appearing in her mind. Daniel. Lucy suddenly sat upright. No, that can't be possible. She shook her head immediately. Daniel was now an usher in church, a changed man, a born-again Christian. But still, the suspicion refused to leave her mind. The next Sunday during service, Lucy quietly observed Daniel from her seat as Daniel moved around, collecting offering baskets and arranging chairs. Lucy noticed something strange. Daniel avoided eye contact with her completely. The moment their eyes almost met, Daniel looked away nervously. Lucy's suspicion deepened instantly. Why is he acting like that? She thought. From that day onward, Lucy secretly began watching Daniel carefully. She paid attention to when he arrived at the church, when he left, who he spoke to, and where he went after service. One evening after church closed, Lucy saw Daniel leave through the back gate quietly instead of using the main entrance. Immediately, she followed him from a distance. The streets became emptier as Daniel continued walking deeper toward the outskirts of the town. Lucy hid carefully behind buildings and trees, making sure he never noticed her. Soon, Daniel arrived at an abandoned house hidden behind overgrown bushes. The place looked old, dark, and lifeless. Broken windows, cracked walls, rusty roofing sheets. Lucy's heart began beating rapidly. Daniel looked around cautiously before entering the building. Lucy moved closer slowly and hid beside one of the broken windows. Inside the abandoned house, only a small lantern illuminated the darkness. Then suddenly, another figure emerged from the shadows wearing black clothing. Lucy narrowed her eyes, trying to see clearly. Daniel lowered his head respectfully. Then he spoke. "Pastor Maxwell." Instantly, the man in black turned sharply and slapped Daniel hard across the face. "Ha!" Daniel staggered backward in shock. The mysterious man stepped closer angrily. "How many times must I tell you?" He removed part of the black cloak covering his face. "To call me Venom when we are outside church." Lucy's eyes widened in absolute horror. It was Pastor Maxwell. Venom paced around furiously. His black cloak dragged across the dusty wooden floor as anger burned in his eyes. Daniel stood quietly near the wall, sweating nervously. Suddenly, Venom turned and grabbed Daniel violently by the shirt. "You fool," he roared. Daniel stumbled back in fear. "Venom, shut up." Venom barked angrily. Lucy widened her eyes in fear and shock outside the window. She had never seen Pastor Maxwell behave like this before. "I warned you," he shouted. "I warned you to never make mistakes." Daniel quickly defended himself. "It was not my fault." Venom slapped him again violently. "Because of you, Francis is dead. And his little witch of a sister keeps monitoring your movements, and you don't even notice." Daniel held his cheek painfully. "Leave her to me. I'll handle her." "I told you to injure him and not to kill him," Venom thundered. Daniel's breathing became shaky. The gun discharged unexpectedly. He said. Venom pointed at him furiously. "You are reckless, careless, and stupid." Daniel's face slowly changed from fear to frustration. "For years I cleaned up your messes," he snapped back. Venom froze briefly. "You think all these prophecies happened by magic?" Venom glared at him silently. Daniel stepped forward emotionally. "I was the one arranging everything." Lucy tightened her grip on the phone while recording. Daniel pointed angrily at Venom. "When you prophesied about Kate, I arranged the fake ritual exactly as we planned. I made sure the man frightened her badly to make her run back to church." Venom looked away bitterly. Daniel continued sarcastically. "And your miracle money prophecy," he pointed at himself proudly. "I organized the stranger with the black bag as well. All those testimonies that made church members fear and worship you," he smirked darkly, "also happened because of me." Venom suddenly grabbed Daniel by the throat. "Never forget who made you," he growled. Daniel struggled slightly but continued speaking. "You needed my skills. You preached the prophecies," Daniel said bitterly. "But I was the one risking my life carrying them out." Venom's eyes burned with rage. Daniel pointed accusingly at him. "I made sure they escaped alive so they could return to church and testify before everyone." Daniel continued emotionally. "I built your reputation." Venom suddenly burst into dark laughter. "My reputation?" he said slowly. He stepped closer to Daniel. "No, Daniel." His voice became colder. "I built fear, and fearful people are easy to control." The room became silent again. Then suddenly, crack, Lucy accidentally stepped on a dry piece of wood. Both men froze immediately. Venom slowly turned towards the window. His face twisted with rage. "Who is there?" Lucy's heart nearly stopped. Without thinking twice, she turned and ran, fast. Her feet slammed against the wet ground as she pushed through the thick bushes surrounding the abandoned house. Venom and Daniel pursued her with all their might. Lucy looked back briefly and nearly stumbled. Daniel was getting closer. Lightning flashed across the sky. For a moment, Lucy could see Venom himself emerging from the abandoned house, his black cloak flowing behind him like darkness. Fear exploded inside her chest. She ran harder. Finally, she saw a glimmer of hope when she approached the road. Suddenly, Lucy tripped on a stone and crashed hard onto the muddy ground. Her phone slipped from her hand. Daniel smiled darkly as he approached. "Now it's over. Hand over the phone and say your last prayers," he said coldly. But Lucy stubbornly held onto the phone. Then suddenly, police sirens echoed faintly from the distance. Daniel froze. Venom, standing farther behind, immediately realized what was happening. Lucy had already sent the recording. Venom's face twisted with rage. "Leave her," he barked. Daniel hesitated briefly before both men disappeared back into the darkness. After hiding from the police the whole night, Pastor Maxwell was found in his house in the morning trying to flee the country with his belongings and a bag full of money. He was arrested by the police the moment he stepped out of the house. Daniel was also arrested at a bus station trying to escape. The police officers bundled him to the police station. The whole city woke up to the news of Pastor Maxwell's arrest. They were so shocked. The church members were so shocked. They could not believe their ears, but one thing remained in everyone's mind. The man they called a prophet was the devil hiding behind the altar.
Venom in the church.